Go ahead, Sam.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our senior project. Starting off, my essential question was, how can I educate middle high school students on financial literacy, and how can I help apply the knowledge to personal finance? An overview for my presentation is going to be, what is my project, why, how, and when. So the inspiration for my project was, when I was 15, I started working at a real estate brokerage, and I discovered my passion for finances and investments, specifically real estate. And I learned a lot through that company. I learned what mortgages are, what an interest rate is, how do they work, how can you get a loan, how can you get approved, all that stuff that most adults know, but kids don't. I also started asking around to my peers and stuff about what do they know about credit cards, what do they know about this financial topic, and I kept getting the same response, which was they didn't know anything. Everybody was just clueless as to what I was talking about. So that kind of brought up the need of having an education on this topic specifically. So here's some research on the topic I did, is that most students don't know about it. And according to a survey done by Champlain College, 67% of parents are reluctant to talk to their kids about finances. So if the school isn't teaching them, parents are reluctant to talk about it, where else are they going to get that education that they need? And in a test out of countries, in financial literacy test for 15-year-olds, the US tested 7 out of 15 countries, which is kind of falling behind the curve, which is not a good thing. And according to this infographic, Massachusetts is one of the worst states to teach financial literacy in. They have an F out of all the states, and it's not just Massachusetts, it's almost the whole New England area. So that's a worrying statistic. So an explanation of my project is, my project kind of came to fruition in my sophomore year due to the sophomore research project. My sophomore research project was why financial literacy should be taught in schools. And my mentor at the time, Mrs. Copice, told me how this could kind of roll over into a senior project. And I took that idea and I went with it, and I wanted to see how I could roll it over. So it involves educating students about financial topics they're interested in. So when I started doing my project, I sent out a survey for it, and depending on which subjects got the most responses or scored the best, I would either bring in a professional or do a presentation myself. I presented during Flex, and then I would help any student whenever they had a question. My mentor was Miss Hilton. She worked at New Balance as a training and development specialist. In that job, she kind of managed the accounts and how to run a business. And she's also a Millis High School alum, so getting her perspective of going from Millis to college to the job was a super helpful insight, because it helped me know what I would need to focus on and what I need to kind of nail down to the students who are graduating now or who are going into college now, and what they would need to know about financial topics. So here are the results from the survey. I created a survey to send out during advisory, and I received a lot more responses than I expected. I received 103 responses, and the first question is, would you be interested in learning more about financial topics? I just had to know, so I don't know what people were actually interested in. And 70.9% of people said yes. And out of those people who said yes, they said that they would like to learn more about real estate and credit cards. Real estate received 30.4% of the votes, and then credit cards and credit scores received 27.2%, and then the rest is distributed evenly, 14.1% between loans, budgeting, and then interest. So for the real estate flex block, setting up that flex block, I took over Ms. Hilton's flex, and I invited some guest speakers because based on the survey, people wanted to learn about real estate, so I went into that first. And I read over the speaker's presentation. I made sure that it was kind of legible to high school students. They understood what they were talking about. It wasn't too complicated. And before the speakers arrived, I went into the room I was presenting in, made sure all the type was working perfectly, didn't have to call anybody in. And the guest speakers were Mateus Goncalves and Gabriel Vieira. They are real estate agents that work at the same company that I do. Mateus has over 5 years experience, and Gabe has 1 year of experience as an agent and 7 in the real estate industry. I brought them in mostly because they were young, they kind of understood what we were going through, and they also could explain the topic a lot better than I ever could. How did the flex go? So the flex had a decent turnout. All students present had decent and thoughtful questions. They presented a ton of options for students to join the real estate sector. They talked about jobs. They talked about how to buy your first house, how to prepare yourself to buy your first house. They mostly focused on what real estate is and the process of buying and selling a house and how they can do it for themselves. Here's some more pictures. This is Mateus and that's Gabe. I just took a couple as the presentation was going on. Debrief, it went a lot better than I expected. I didn't expect that many people to turn out. I kind of just expected like five people just kind of listening in. But I had a decent turnout. All the students were really engaged and asked insightful questions, and I tried to notice like what was boring them or confusing them so I could adjust my presentation accordingly. And the students reacted really well to when the agents used personal experiences in their examples. So like Mateus talked about when he was buying his first house or when he was coming out of college, and it helped the students understand what they were doing. So for the second flex block, I did it on credit, and this one I did myself. So I took over Ms. Helen's flex and I made my own presentation. I researched the most important facts and skills students would need to know coming out of high school. So like getting your first credit card, building your credit, all that sort of things. Again, checked over Ms. Type. And then Ms. Hilton was actually not able to be at my flex block, so it was kind of like riding solo. And I did speak a little fast, I won't lie, but I made sure that I answered many questions as best as I could whenever they had it. And everybody seemed to understand, but at the same time I know it's a little confusing. Here's a picture from the flex block. That's me speaking, and I was explaining like the best start credit cards to the students. And the debrief of that is that I was pretty nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I spoke pretty fast, but I feel like I got my point across. Kind of doing the same thing right now. I'm speaking a little fast, but I'm trying to get my point across. And the students asked a lot of clarifying questions, which helped them understand the content better. I tried to include topics they would use in the next couple of months, and like I said, the students grasped the knowledge really well. So the successes and working points of my project, they had a pretty decent turnout. I felt very organized and I had good communication with Ms. Hilton. We were always in constant contact, either in the library or continuing in the email communication. There was plenty of information. Some points that I can improve on is better speaking pace. Probably try to get my point across more easily without having to like rush through it. I would have had better time management. I had good communication, it's just that when it came to the actual execution of things, I would procrastinate a lot. And that was something that kind of bit me in the end. I kept trying to catch up. I turned a lot of things in late, but in the end it turned out well. I should have advertised my flex block a lot more. I kind of just let the kids who usually go to Miss Hilton's flex blocks come to mine, but I feel like if I actually made a flyer or try to advertise it, announce it somewhere, I would have had a bigger turnout. It's not a bad thing, but it's something that I wish if I could change, I would. I have, for some reason this slide got deleted, but I have a continuing part of my project. So I have computer science with Mr. E, and in that, I was working with him on creating a website that I could leave here after I leave Millis High School with all the information needed for students right now. It's called Same Stuff. It has like the dollar sign instead of S's. But yeah, so then on that, I was gonna have Mateus and Gabriel create their own like, little blurb, like information about real estate, how they can get into it, all the basics. I was gonna have Ms. Hilton talk about her experience going from the Millis alum to college and everything like that. And then I was also going to lay out all the information that I laid out in the survey. Like I would have a section for each of those information, or each of those subjects, so that students wouldn't be so lost when it came time for them to do their own thing, or for them to actually go out into the world and start building their own credit. I want to give a special thank you to Ms. Hilton. She was always there for me, always helped me. She was always guiding me. Mateus and Gabriel for coming in on such short notice. I had actually texted them a week before, so they didn't have a product, they didn't have a presentation or anything. Ms. Phil Brown for always keeping me on top of everything, and for all the high school participants who came and actually like helped me. Thank you, Catherine, for being there. excited.